This is a Second World War poem by Henry Reed called Naming of Parts. Today we have naming of parts. Yesterday we had daily cleaning. And tomorrow morning we shall have what to do after firing. But today we have naming of parts. Japonica glistens like coral in all of the neighbouring gardens, and today we have naming of parts. This is the lower sling swivel, and this is the upper sling swivel, whose use you will see when you are given your slings. And this is the piling swivel, which in your case you have not got. The branches hold in the gardens their silent, eloquent gestures, which in our case we have not got. This is the safety catch, which is always released with an easy flick of the thumb. And please do not let me see anyone using his finger. You can do it quite easy if you have any strength in your thumb. The blossoms are fragile and motionless, never letting anyone see any of them using their finger. And this, you can see, is the bolt. The purpose of this is to open the breech, as you see. We can slide it rapidly backwards and forwards. We call this easing the spring. And rapidly backwards and forwards the early bees are assaulting and fumbling the flowers. They call it easing the spring. They call it easing the spring. It is perfectly easy if you have any strength in your thumb, like the bolt and the breech and the cocking piece and the point of balance, which in our case we have not got. And the almond blossom silent in all of the gardens, and the bees going backwards and forwards. For today we have naming of parts.
This is not my memory of the war, but it's from a letter written by Evelyn Waugh, who's a famous novelist, to his wife Laura from Glasgow on the 31st of May 1942. So, No. 3 Commando were very anxious to be chums with Lord Glasgow, so they offered to blow up an old tree stump for him. And he was very grateful and said, "Don't spoil the plantation of young trees near it, because that is the apple of my eye." And they said, "No, of course not. We can blow a tree down and it falls on a sixpence." And Lord Glasgow said, "Goodness, you are clever." He asked them all to luncheon for the great explosion. So Colonel Durnford Slater, DSO, said to his subaltern, "Have you put enough explosive in the tree?" "Yes, sir, 75 pounds. "Is that enough?" "Yes, I worked it out by mathematics. It's exactly right." "Well, better put in a bit more." "Very good, sir." And when Colonel Durnford Slater, DSO, had had his port, he sent for the subaltern and said, "Subaltern, better put a bit more explosive in that tree. I don't want to disappoint Lord Glasgow." "Very good, sir." Then they all went out to see the explosion, and Colonel D. Saunders, DSO, said, "You'll see that tree fall flat at just that angle where it will hurt no young trees." And Lord Glasgow said, "Goodness, you are clever." So soon they lit the fuse and waited for the explosion, and presently the tree, instead of falling quietly sideways, rose 50 feet into the air, taking with it half an acre of soil and the whole of the young plantation. And the subaltern said, "Sir, I made a mistake. It should have been 7.5 pounds, not 75. Lord Glasgow was so upset he walked in dead silence back to his castle. And when they came to the turn of the drive in sight of his castle, what should they find but that every pane of glass in the building was broken. So Lord Glasgow gave a little cry and ran to hide his emotion in the lavatory. And there, when he pulled the plug, the entire ceiling, loosened by the explosion, fell on his head. This is a true story.